Hello, I'm Dr. McCartney. I'm a chartered psychologist in the UK. I'm fascinated by human behaviour, but particularly criminal human behaviour. Now, just to say that I'm not diagnosing anybody in these videos, and I'm just speculating as to what their thoughts and motivations may have been. So today, I'm going to look at the case of John Worboys, also known as the Black Cab Rapist. I'll give a bit of background to the case. I'll have a look at some of his personality factors, and then I'll give you some of my idea of what I believe he was thinking at the time at some crucial moments in this case. To become a black cab driver in London is a huge commitment. You have to go through what's known as the knowledge. It takes time and commitment, and it's not done lightly. And as a consequence of that, black cabs in London are kind of known as safety places. They're places that nothing is going to go wrong. The person that is driving your cab has put such a lot of effort into becoming that licensed driver. They're known as secure places. So for this licensed black cab driver, John Worboys, to be taking advantage of that caused huge amounts of uproar at the time and consequently. So I just wanted to give that as a little bit of background, because when women, his MO would be to pick up women late at night outside clubs, outside bars and restaurants who were on their own wanting to go home. He would say to them, I've just had this huge win, either via the lottery or a casino or something. And he would have a carrier bag full of banknotes, and he'd say, look, I've just had this huge win, and would you like to celebrate with me? I picked up some champagne. I've got a couple of glasses here. And he would be drugging them. In the champagne that they'd be drinking, he would be drugging them. He would be sedating them. And then he would sexually assault them, severely sexually assault them, take them to where they were going. I've never quite fathomed out whether they actually paid him for the fare or whether his clock was still running when these assaults were taking place. And I've never worked that out, but it would just be the most awful irony that not only have they been drugged and raped, they were also then having to pay for the privilege. But I wouldn't, going by what I found out about his personality, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if that wasn't the case. So that would be his MO. He would pick women up. He would say to them, listen, just had this win. Come and celebrate with me. They were outside clubs. They were outside bars. They were outside restaurants. So the chances of them already having consumed alcohol was pretty high, and he was just capitalising on that. The drugs hit. Now, his drug of choice would be a sedative, Rohypnol or something similar, that he previously had found out by just asking at a pharmacy what the effects would be if mixed with alcohol. And he was pretty assured that the person that he was assaulting, drugging and assaulting, would be unconscious and, crucially, would have a very vague and sketchy memory of what had happened. And for years, there would be reports of a black cab driver drugging and assaulting women. And this would happen because obviously he was picking up the fares, probably central London, and taking them to all over London. And these would be reported to the local police stations around London. And there was no particular joined up thinking between them. And subsequently, years after, the Metropolitan Police had to award damages to some of the women because they just didn't take their reports of being assaulted seriously. The first reports would be the early 2000s. Now, he was a black cab driver from 1995 till his arrest in 2008. And the first reports would start coming in the early 2000s. But as I said, they were dismissed. And it was only when, again, these were being reported, but seemingly being reported, there was a rape of a solicitor. And it was only then that the police started taking this seriously, when somebody that they believed to be a credible victim, it sounds awful to say it, but they believed to be more credible than the reports they'd had before, started reporting this, that they realised that they had a serial rapist on their case. So they gathered all the information, and they even put out an appeal asking women to come forward had they believed to be the victims of John Worboys. He was finally arrested 2007, and his trial in March 2008, where he was convicted, he would be convicted for this attack on 12 different women. At his trial, he denied everything. He said that any sex that he had with any of the victims was consensual. He admitted to engaging in banter, and he also admitted that he wanted attention because as a child he lacked attention and lacked cuddles. I'm using this as a direct quote. So he was trying to justify his actions, but all the time saying that anything that went on between him and the women was consensual. When he was arrested, in the back of one of his vehicles, there contained his rape kit. There would be the bag of money, the wine glasses, the drugs, the champagne to put the drugs in. So he was going out premeditatively to rape and attack women. It's believed that he has potentially hundreds of victims. He was only convicted in 2009 of 12. He was only convicted in 2009 of 12 assaults. He was subsequently pled guilty in 2019 to 4 further assaults. For that, he was given a life sentence. And it's interesting, his case, that in 2018, he was up before the parole board and they had recommended his release. But there was a huge outcry about this. A news organisation got hold of the story and there was a huge outcry about this. And subsequently, he was then further charged, and he's now currently serving life imprisonment. As to whether that means life, time will tell. So Worboys' background was pretty straightforward, nothing stunning, nothing that you would expect to find in the background of a serial rapist that says that he was denied cuddles as a child. But he was an egotist. From an early age, he would display himself. He was interested in people's reactions and thoughts about him. Everything was about him. For many years, he would work as a strippogram. He enjoyed the attention and he thought that he was deserved of this attention. When you look at some of his publicity photographs, which I'll put up as we go through, he thought that he should have this attention. It was his right to have this attention. And this would have been sexual attention as well. He was a strippogram, for goodness sake. Of course, that comes with that particular market. So he thought that he should have this attention. And when he couldn't get it and the response that he wanted from women normally, he found a way very quickly to coerce this from basically unconscious women. But his right in his head was that he should be allowed to do this. If we look at his personality factors, and I'm going to use the 5 model factor with the acronym of OCEAN, which stands for openness to experience, conscientiousness, extrovertism, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Now, on openness to new experience, obviously he scores quite highly. He was up for different things. He was a strippogram. I think he did a bit of male modelling. I've heard about some swinging as well that he did. So he was very open sexually to new experiences. On conscientiousness, he scores very low. On extrovertism, not surprisingly, he scores very, very highly. On agreeableness, he could be agreeable. It was interesting that when he was arrested before he was actually arrested for and charged. So he was arrested beforehand. And he knew that the police were just beginning to take an interest in some of his activities, but they would let him go. And it was said in court that he was like 2 different people. To the police, he was completely different. He was this agreeable, chummy type. And, these girls, they're just making it up. You know, they're crying rape when they've got their husbands and boyfriends to have to explain what they've been up to. And to him, that would have been justification for carrying on. So, yeah, he was an agreeable in the right situation, which a lot of criminals are. They can be very agreeable in the right situation, but very disagreeable in other situations. And his neuroticism, I'd kind of put that at the medium. Yeah, there's elements of it. Oh, poor me, and I'm a little bit vigilant about not getting relationships, not getting the attention I deserve. But then at the same time, it's pretty low as well in some cases because I don't really care. I'm not really that fussed about what's going on with other people. So I'd kind of put him at the medium. Now, if we just have a think about a couple of points during his crime scene. So I've also I've already said about his agreeableness, what his thoughts would have been about the police. They're on my side. They don't agree with any of these things that these girls are saying. There's been complaints about me, and I'm getting it away. I'm getting away with it. So that's my kind of agreeableness, my extrovertism. I'm winning. So his planning is another interesting aspect of what his thoughts might have been about that. And he would have been thinking, right, I can do this. I'm telling these girls that I've won money. They're agreeing to have a drink with me. And it would have been interesting that his thoughts would have been, well, this is what you want. You know, who are you? You're nothing. You're just agreeing with me and you're going along with it. So I have the right to do this. So in his head, he would have been thinking, this is what I'm doing. He would have picked up thousands of fares over the years, you know, when he was being a cab driver. And was every single one of them a potential victim? Who knows? But the fact that it turned into the hundreds that it did is alarming and awful. But I hate to say the word, his success rate would have probably been quite low. There would have been a lot of people that would have just said, no, thank you, can you just take me to my fare and take me to my home and here's the fare. But he would have had that sense of entitlement that when somebody agreed to have a drink with him and then subsequently what happened, he would have just had that sense of entitlement which would have encouraged him. So if we think about his actual attacks, there was meticulous planning about that, and he would have been congratulating himself for being such a clever boy, for having consulted with the pharmacist about the length that these people would be unconscious and their memory of it afterwards. Ultimately, he would have been thinking, I'm still a good-looking man, I deserve what I want. And if I have to drug you to get what I want, which is to get a sexual pleasure, a sexual thrill, and to dominate you, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. And you won't remember it because I've drugged you, and that'll make it okay. In his mind, he was thinking, because you won't remember it, that will make it okay. And this is what he did for years. And lastly, I just wanted to pick up on that kind of two different person things that the police and the trial would have noticed about him. And again, this is compartmentalising. And I can compartmentalise myself as being a cab driver that is earning money to pay the rent and do whatever it was he did with it. But at the same time, I'm compartmentalising myself to be this sexual predator. And in his head, this successful sexual predator that he would have just carried on doing, probably until at some point he did get caught. And it's awful that he did this for as many years as he did. But thank heavens he finally did get caught. And scarred the reputation of black cab drivers in London. So those are my thoughts about John Worboys, also known as the Black Cab Rapist. Please put some comments below. I'll be really interested to read what people have to say about this. And if I could ask you to please subscribe and like, that'd be really great. And if you look on my channel, there's plenty more videos that all delve into the psychology and the psyche of crime. I'll put a link to it below.